Now, so let's rock and roll. And this afternoon's class is going to be carried by you. We're going to be discussing the work that is due today. You're going to talk about your experiences in terms of the information you would have gathered from the videos that I would have posted both on the stream and along with the assignment. And you will talk about what you would have created for the assignment. Are we clear on what approach we're going to use?
Yes, sir.
Good. When I would have submitted the assignment, there's some points that I would have highlighted for you to focus on individual subject matter, composition, minimalism, scale, and scale basically had to do with the size of the pieces that she did and her color scheme. And I would like to hear your thoughts and your views on what you would have gathered from the studying of those information and how you would have put together your work. So the floor is open.
Good day, everyone. So, the assignment was based around Georgia O'Keeffe's work, and before I came across this assignment, I was familiar with the artist, and um, what I would hear from other people mostly is that she would deal with femininity and those topics. But upon researching the work and actually like listening to her and her speak about her work, you realize that it really wasn't about what people would say it was about. It was her approach was different, but people sort of assumed or understood it in a different way from what she was trying to say. So it was interesting to see how skewed my view and other people's views were of her work, but I got to have like a better understanding of her approach and the themes and so on that she used. I linked her work a lot with Cubism, the way she looked at like objects and scenery and so on, and represented it in a way that wasn't realistic or wasn't realistic or naturalistic. So she kind of used the essence of the object, but added more to it and represented it in a way that it would be fully understood. But what was different from her in terms of cubism was the use of like lines and elements instead of using geometric lines or like this sort of blocky cubist look. Her work was much more natural and she used organic shapes and lines to represent the themes because most of the themes were organic, natural objects like flowers and bones and so on. So I was able to make that link with her and cubism. Um, She sought. I wrote down some notes here. I wrote she sought new ways to see. And I think that was an interesting way to look at it. She wasn't because if you look at the time before her, the way artists were representing things, and in one of the videos, it spoke about how like what her teachers were doing. If you looked at her earlier work, it was realistic. It was like what everyone else was doing. But then in her later works, or when she sort of found herself and her style, she sought new ways to see things and she made a big impact on the art scene, especially in North America and especially as a woman too. Like her impact was more, I guess, impactful. So you could see the progressions in her paintings, but also in her drawings. And that's something I wrote down as well, the charcoal drawings that she did and how she spoke about she only used color when she felt like she needed to or when I can't remember exactly what she said, but she used the black and white medium in a way that until she was satisfied that she used it enough that she could move on to a next medium. So that was an interesting point I found. Something else that I came across, well, you sent some photos of her that her husband took, Stieglitz, and like watching the videos and the documentaries and so on about her and the relationship with Stieglitz, I honestly felt uncomfortable with the way. Well, of course, I don't know everything that was going on, but like the way he photographed her, and he almost it felt like he used her. So like I don't know, because she wasn't happy. She said she wasn't happy with the photographs and something else. It made me like jump back a little, but I do think the photos are interesting and the compositions are interesting. But like knowing the background of it, or the context of it, it made me a little iffy. But besides that, I think her art is really interesting. It was really interesting get to actually hear her speak, hear the her words straight from her mouth. So that was an interesting aspect of the assignment. I'll stop there.
Yeah, you raised some very good points. I too, like you, prior to, because I stud she was one of the artists that I would have studied for my my thesis when I did my diploma when I was in art school. She was one of the artists that I would have studied. And when prior to really studying her work, much of what I would have been hearing had to do with with the sexual nature of her work. That was the misconception that everyone was parroting and propagating about her work. But when I studied her, I found something totally different. And one of the things that would have drawn me to her work was her compositional style and scale. And I particularly use scale because I wanted you to see what how composition and how subject matters can change when you see them from a different point of view, especially when you take small objects and then you blow them up beyond life size. There's so many things that you discover in doing that. And that's one of the things that she did so beautifully. And I think when by doing that, she brought to the attention of the viewers things that we would have overlooked. And that's why I would have started with that quote from her. There's a lot of beauty and a lot to be learned from looking at things in detail, and especially those small and minute things that we tend to overlook. And as it relates to the nude photographs, I've always been impressed with the composition. But like you, when I would have heard the background story in terms of our relationship with Stiglitz and the kind of a bullying attitude, so to speak, that he had, um, I too was not did not look at them in the same way. Even though from a strictly photographic point of view and on a compositional point of view, they're beautiful photographs. The conditions and the circumstances based on what was said in the videos that led to the production of those pieces would have left a kind of a bitter taste in the mouth, because you would have hoped that something like that would have been mutual understanding between both artists, because of course they were both artists. But that tends to happen when you have artists who you know have that kind of personality that you could associate with Stiglitz. It tends to happen, and you can see that it didn't just happen with her; it would have happened with groups that you would have formed, and the approaches that you would have taken in terms of the heavy-handed approaches in terms of how you would have run those groups. But one of the reasons why I would have brought to the class attention those particular points, and I want us to study O'Keeffe, is because, and I'm hoping that you know that we're not doing the cookie cutter studying of a modern artist like persons will regularly do. I wanted you to see what were the contributing factors, understanding the life, the circumstances, the situations, and the conditions under which these works would have been produced, because they're not different from what we are doing. Some of those challenges we are facing, it might be different, but nonetheless, they are challenges. And one of the things that I hope that you take away from studying O'Keeffe is our ability to take situations and circumstances and really turn them into creative things. And those charcoal drawings, especially the ones where you are the fabric and the interplay between positive and negative space. I'm hoping that y'all would have paid keen attention to that. I did not brought any of that into focus because I deliberately didn't want to steer your view. But I was hoping that in your studying, those are things that you would have been um, that would have caught your attention, because they're very, very good points that you can use to really make your work stand out from the regular persons. And I hope that that's something that you were able to take away. If not, me just mentioning it, I hope that you're able to go back and look and really see, because there's a lot that we can learn from her and her experiences, and a lot that we can take away and we can use in our own individual work. But of course, she was a pioneer. Of course, she was brave. Of course, she was bold. And then she came up in a time where women were just getting into that place where they were able to vote and all those kind of things. And those are political situations that you have to be aware of. Because very often when we go to the work and we just look at it from a surface point of view, all of these factors don't inform us in terms of how we look at the work. But when you understand those factors, it gives you a great appreciation for the quality and the bravery that it took to produce the kind of works that she would have produced. And of course, the whole idea of her being very feminist and emphasizing the sexual nature of things. But of course, you know that that was at that time that psychological concept was the thing that was there. So persons would sometimes see things that weren't necessarily there, and she would have made that very clear. What they would have seen is just a reflection of what they were thinking. And I think that's something as artists that we have to be aware of, because persons will see things in your work that you necessarily weren't intending to express, but that has nothing to do with you. It's all about what they bring to the table in terms of how they view the work. So I'm hoping that those are some of the things that you all would have learned. So next person, please. But thank you for those points. Yes, Ms. Bovell, you here, and I think you should have been able to. Or Ms. Duke, you would have just arrived. We're talking about the assignment on Georgia O'Keeffe. This is what we were supposed to discuss last Wednesday, and we didn't get a chance because we didn't have everyone in attendance. And by now, you should have been able to make notes. You should have been able to get some ideas and so on together. So we would like you to share your thoughts, because what we're doing right now, this afternoon session is going to be student led. So you're controlling the direction of the discussion, and I will just come in where it's necessary. I trust that you're hearing us, Minerva. Are you hearing us, Minerva? You hear me, Roberto?
Yes, sir, I'm hearing you. Minerva, put something in the chat.
Or she put something in the chat. Oh, she's in the store downtown. So you, so you can't speak in the store? Okay, Miss Bovell. I wonder what is happening with Zoya, because she was here. Anyway, Robert, it seems like we're gonna have to control the discussion along the way. So see what else you can add, and let's take the conversation from there.
Good afternoon,
Go
sir.
ahead, Minerva. Yes, good afternoon.
I'm downtown. I'm downtown picking up some paints, and I logged into class because I know I can't make it home in time.
Well, nothing is wrong. You can share your thoughts and so on with us there, because it seems like the internet there is reliable. Oh, yeah. What I was saying is
Yes,
that
I have data
we.
on.
Oh, well, go ahead and share your thoughts from what you would have gathered from the studying of the information for the assignment that's due today. We want you to give us a synopsis of some of the things that you would have taken away from what you would have studied. You hearing us? Yeah, Roberto, let's keep it rolling, and when Minerva comes in back, then we could probably take it from there because our data might be a little iffy at the moment, so maybe that's why.
Yes, sir. For my piece, I'm still working
Sorry, you
on
guys
it.
are breaking up. I can't hear properly. Hello?
We're
Yeah,
hearing
we're
you.
hearing you.
Hello?
Okay, we're
Oh,
hearing you. What you could do,
hi.
what you could do, Miss Boville, you could go ahead and share your thoughts because we're hearing you clearly.
Okay, so when I first study Georgia O'Keeffe, I find her work really interesting because first when I look at her work, I find her lines very dramatic. It's like how she created variety with the thin and thick line. To me, I find it dramatic, and the way that she used her colors are very emotional. And just now, sir.
Yeah, while we wait for Miss Boville to come back in, I think one of the things that I know would be of benefit to students is if they take the time to really study these documentaries and these videos that speaks about the work and life and times of those modern masters, because we're in a place now where the information is available online and you have to take advantage of it. And I think if students allow themselves to really study and study properly those videos that are available online, there's a lot that you can take away that can really improve the quality of your work. And that is something that you have to take an individual's responsibility for, because there's only so much you can learn from in a classroom setting. There's only so much a tutor or a teacher or a coach or whoever it is can be able to give to you. A lot of it you have to be able to do a lot of independent work, and because the information is available, then you have to take advantage of it, because we did not have access to this kind of information, not readily. In when we did our studies in art history and art appreciation, we had to wait for that one particular day when we went over to the JFK library and we looked at videos maybe for an hour or two, however the time was that was allotted to us. But now you have information at the tip of your fingers and you can utilize it whenever you're ready. And once you study these videos, it can really guide you in terms of shaping your own individual artistic language and direction. And that's one of the reasons why I tend to share these videos to help you to get those kind of information and then start
Hello,
to speak. Go ahead.
Agwada. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, sir. As I was saying, yeah, as I was saying, I'm familiar with the artist Georgia O'Keeffe because I study her work a lot of times. And as I said earlier, I kind of find it dramatic because how she used her colors and her lines. Uh, um, the video that you sent to the classroom after watching it, I find it pretty interesting because of gosh,
Yeah, go ahead. We're hearing you. Our fill in there, Roberto, unless we have this long period of silence.
Yes, sir. About my piece, I'm still working on it, but the inspiration that I'm using is the underside of mushrooms. So instead of looking at them from the typical view that we get like above or maybe sideways, I'm looking at the underside. And when you look at them, they're really interesting because they have these like frills. I think they're
Mhm.
called gills, and so it's like really intricate and folded, and that's how the mushrooms are produced. That's where the spores come out from. So I'm using that view of them, and I'm arranging them using inspiration from um O'Keeffe's charcoal drawings, how she arranged the elements.
Mhm.
So I'm using those elements in my work on a canvas. The color scheme, I'm still working on it. I've planned out the values so far, but I'm still deciding on the like which direction to head in terms of color.
Yeah, I think, and I'm happy that you're able to do what you're doing with the mushroom, because one of the things that tends to elude us as artists is that we tend to see things from that one point perspective, for want of a better expression, where we do it the way it's been done traditionally, and we don't seek to go beyond the cliched way of viewing and talking about things. And I think that's one of the things that O'Keeffe would have done so beautifully, is that by zooming in terms of flowers, and one of the things that you need to recognize too is the way Stieglitz's photography would have been influential in our taking that approach. So as much as some of what would have taken place between them was not all of that savory, so to speak, there would have still been mutual influence that would have been of benefit to both of them. And by taking that approach of looking at the mushroom from a different point of view, you're going to start seeing things that others would not be able to see. You're going to start bringing things to your audience awareness that they weren't aware of before. And that's where the interest in your composition is going to come in. And once you understand how you blend all of that with your color scheme and your composition and that kind of stuff, you will be able to create some really, really interesting pieces of work that is not going to be the cookie cutter kind of thing that most persons tend to do when they just look at artists from a surface. That, well, I like this composition, or this composition is interesting, or this subject matter, this painting is interesting. And then they just seek to replicate it by making some changes here and there. Once you understand all of the contributing factors that goes into the production of a work of art, that is what gives it the essence. That is what allows it to be able to speak to its viewers at a more deeper level, rather than just the regular surface level that most of us tend to approach the work. And essentially, that is what will allow you to establish an artistic language of your own. That is what will be able to take your major art in a direction that is going to be different from anybody else's, right? And it is very important that you take that theoretical aspect of your work. When I say theoretical aspect, I'm talking about reading and researching and building up your knowledge based on whatever subject matter or whatever topic you're dealing with, so that when you go to the canvas now to paint, you're painting with a base of information that allows you to dictate how you use your colors, how you use the composition, what you put where, what you seek to emphasize, and what is the message you send to your audience. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. That's I don't really have anything else to add in terms of the piece. I'm still working on it. Um,
Ms. Buffalo, is there anything you want to add from where you would have left off before you got bumped? What are you working on, Ms. Buffalo? Is your composition completed, the one that you were supposed to submit today? Not sure if she's hearing us. Here's what we're gonna do. There are some compositions. There are some pieces within the this particular video presentation that I want us to look at as a group. So let's go through it quickly. And after we finish doing that, we're gonna wrap up, and I'm gonna give you an opportunity to complete your
Hello,
work.
and welcome to the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum. I'm Mario Flynn, the museum's curator of fine arts, and I'm pleased to take you on this virtual tour of some highlights from our museum building here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I would like to acknowledge this is Pueblo land. I stress this to call attention to the ongoing injustice of settler colonialism and the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum's continuing commitment to strengthening ties with this community. This relatively large work, Abstraction White Rose, was painted by Georgia O'Keeffe in 1927. Now, a white rose might seem to us like a very ordinary subject. That's because there's a long tradition in the history of art of painting flowers. We can think back to the 17th century when the idea of still life subject really came into its own in Northern Europe. Traditionally, these paintings of flowers were designed to capture as much detail as possible, like illustrations in encyclopedias. O'Keeffe, however, does something a little different. Yes, the flowers are a point of departure, and she gives that to us in the title, White Rose. Indeed, the forms of the petal create the spiral composition, one of O'Keeffe's favorite motifs, but really the basis of the painting, and she's just as interested in color. Though O'Keeffe may have been looking at a white rose, there's a whole range of colors, from greens to grays in this painting. These subtle color shifts really help to model the flat paint on the canvas, to make it look like a three-dimensional flower. Now, at the same time, O'Keeffe calls this an abstraction. The idea of abstraction was a relatively new one in the 1920s. Artists in Europe and America were beginning to explore the idea that a painting didn't have to have a subject. It was recognizable in nature. It didn't have to be a painting of something. A picture could also be inspired by music, or even the artist's unconscious. Critics were confused when O'Keeffe exhibited paintings like this one. Why was an ordinary flower, a white rose, worthy of being represented on such a large scale? Well, O'Keeffe had an explanation. We tend to overlook, take for granted small things that we see every day. By enlarging the flower, making it take up so much space on the wall, O'Keeffe was forcing us to take the time to look, to see this everyday thing with fresh eyes.
The other thing that I want you all to pay attention to is the way she would have named her pieces, because it's something that we tend to overlook too. But the way you name or the title that you give to your work is just as important as the finished piece. So you should give it as much respect and thought as you give the actual production of the work. Because if you put the actual work in of painting, producing a really solid composition, and then you give it a really crappy title, it takes away from the work. So I want you all to pay attention to that too, because it is something that I recognize from analyzing students' work, that students don't give the level of respect that it deserves. The way you title your work is very important. And it's unfortunate that Zoe is not here, because she's one of those persons I spoke to about that issue, about the way she goes about titling her work. And I'm hoping that she would have gained something from it by looking at the way O'Keeffe would have done that. If not, definitely we need to revisit and look at that again.
We don't tend to think of Georgia O'Keeffe as a sculptor, but she did make a handful of sculptures, and we have examples of each of these in the museum's collection. We call them abstractions, and this little abstraction, which greets you in the museum's first gallery, was designed in 1916. When I say design, I should probably clarify what it is that we're looking at here. This is a cast bronze sculpture, and it's been coated in white lacquer, essentially white paint. But imagine the sculpture that O'Keeffe modeled with her hands in 1916 was made out of a soft material, something like clay or wax. This was the year in which O'Keeffe's mother died, and this statuette has often been interpreted as a mourning figure. What I mean by figure is that it looks very much like a person with their head back, maybe wrapped in some kind of cloth. It's the sort of sculpture that you might expect to find in a cemetery, marking someone's grave. It was only much later that Georgia O'Keeffe took her original model cast in bronze. It went on from being a unique object made by the artist's hands to what we call a multiple, from one to many.
This was also one of the pieces that really caught my attention in terms of, very often when we're painting from a conceptual point of view, where we're looking at things, when you're dealing with figurative and non-figurative, especially non-figurative representations, one of the things I often emphasize is you have to still pay attention to the spatial relationship between the elements that you're placing in your composition. And that's one of the things that she would have done beautifully here. You can clearly tell that this particular shape, whatever it is in the foreground, followed by this one, which is in the middle ground, followed by this one, which is in the background. And this is something that's you're going to have to pay attention to, because this is one of the things I think one of the areas in your work where you take for granted this spatial relationship between the objects that you're placing there. So even though you're going where the objects are more abstracted or non-representational, you still have to pay attention to space, because space plays such an important integral role in terms of how the overall message of the work comes over to us. And that is something that I need you all to pay attention to, because sometimes persons just think, oh, it's only necessary when you deal with realistic representations of pieces. But no, there's much more to a good composition, whether it's abstraction or realistic, when you understand the fundamentals of space and when you use it effectively.
The title of this painting of 1919, Series 1, Number 10, gives us a useful clue about how O'Keeffe painted. What I mean by this is that O'Keeffe, like many painters before her, was fond of working in series, treating the same subject time and again to really explore all of its possibilities. The museum actually owns 2 paintings from this series, and we have reason to believe that both were inspired by a view of Lake George in upstate New York. At the top of the composition are the mountains on the far side of the lake. Below that is the reflection of these mountains on the lake itself. And then, in the middle of the round, we have the treetops. What exactly we're seeing here, in front of these trees, remains a bit of a mystery. We can interpret it as a human form, a body part, maybe an artist's knees as she's gazing out over the lake. O'Keeffe, however, seems to have wanted to leave this a little unclear. She's abstracted her subject, that is to say, reduced it to its essentials. And she's done this more to some elements than to others. The trees, for instance, don't leave as trees with individual leaves, even though those leaves have been reduced to an almost geometric cluster of forms. The mountain in the far distance feels more natural, perhaps viewed through a morning haze, at the very end of the day. The form in the foreground, and that remains a bit of a question mark. Each one of us may see something different. This watercolor of a vase of flowers painted around 1905 tells an interesting story. It reminds us where O'Keeffe was coming from when she created those paintings of flowers, like Abstraction White Rose, that broke new ground in the 1920s. This, in contrast, is a very traditional image. It's the kind of painting that O'Keeffe was taught to make as a student. She was, in fact, a very accomplished watercolor painter. This is a quite sophisticated painting. But there's nothing about this that really distinguishes it from, say, the work of the teacher. Like them, she's responding to a taste around this time in America as in Europe, for a Japanese aesthetic. Cherry blossoms in particular were depicted not only in Japanese painting, but brightly colored Japanese prints. What O'Keeffe demonstrates here is a mastery both of her medium, watercolor, and her chosen motif. What she's not yet done around 1905 is transform this into a language.
The other thing that I need you all to make a note of when you're looking at these kind of videos is the intellectual depth of the narrators, or the persons who are controlling the storyline of the video. And you can tell from the way this curator is talking about the work of O'Keeffe that he would have done his background research and he's knowledgeable. And I need you to pay attention to how he's putting together his information in the way he's describing the work and how everything is justified with evidence from the work and from background information in terms of whether it's the historical context or whether it's the personal life, whatever it is. There's always information that backs up the claims that the narrator or the person who's guiding the conversation in the video is making. And this is something that you all need to pay attention to, because when you're going to talk about your work and you're going to talk about works of art, these are the approach that you should be using. You cannot say things and then you don't back it up with evidence. And in order for you to do that, it means that you have to be knowledgeable, which means you have to do your reading and you have to do your research. So when you're coming to the table, you're coming to the table with something instead of nothing, and you're basically just trying to feel your way about. And that's the danger that most art students run into. When they come to the table with little or nothing, and then they cannot form a proper conversation or have a proper dialogue about the work that they're talking about or the subject matter that they're talking about. So that's another point I want you all to pay attention to these kind of videos when I share them with you. Listen to how persons talk about works of art and how they put it together, because it's very important.
Large drawings, like this.
And this is the one I was talking about. I mean, this is no different from the flower paintings, because all she would have done essentially is to bring into focus the fabric. And then she would have played such a skillful role, she would have done such delicate work with the negative space and the positive space in the composition that it really transforms a regular piece of fabric into something dynamic, something dramatic, and something that leaves you really looking and trying to figure out what's really going on in there. But it's just as simple as that. And one of the things that you have to understand is that when you know what to do and how to do it, These are the kind of compositions that you can create, and these are the kinds of things that you can do with simple subject matter that allows your viewers to really get captivated by what you're doing and what you're saying in the piece of work.
Around 1915, representing a turning point for O'Keeffe. We know quite a lot about these drawings, partly from O'Keeffe's letters. We know, for instance, that she made charcoal drawings like this one, not at a table, but on the ground. In one of these letters, O'Keeffe explains how she has ideas in her head that no one has taught her how to put on paper. And the result, when she does, are these early and groundbreaking experiments with the idea of abstraction. That is, works that don't seem to be images of anything copied from nature. Instead, it looks like the artist derives these expressive forms from her imagination. Partly, O'Keeffe was encouraged to experiment in this way by new teachers that wanted to replace old-fashioned imitation with a new art of innovation. Even so, O'Keeffe's abstractions seem to follow a certain pattern. She began making overnight camping trips around this time, and the motif of the tent door with its parted flaps of fabric becomes a bit of a theme. We may even be seeing a suggestion of the folded fabric of that tent door in this seemingly abstract composition. This large painting of Mount Fuji by Georgia O'Keeffe was executed in 1960, making it a relatively late work. O'Keeffe had been fascinated by Japanese art, even as a student, but it wasn't until the 1950s that she really began to travel internationally in earnest. Her first trip to Japan was part of a round-the-world tour that O'Keeffe took in 1959. O'Keeffe's experience in Japan confirmed an affinity that she'd long felt between Japanese aesthetics, particularly involving a kind of reduced, spare minimalism, and her own style. A view like this one of Mount Fuji is exemplary of how O'Keeffe would recognize and isolate the essential in her subject. In this case, the silhouette of the mountain, the beauty of the pink sky, suggesting sunrise or sunset. This is one of two paintings of this subject in the museum's collection. The other one is very similar, but much smaller. We don't in fact know which came first. This large painting has just undergone a conservation treatment, removing old and discolored varnish. The whites once again look white, and the pink has been restored to O'Keeffe's original color. This photograph of Georgia O'Keeffe by Alfred Stieglitz was taken around the summer of 1918 at Lake George in upstate New York. In 1918, O'Keeffe accepted an invitation from Alfred Stieglitz to come to New York City. He promised to provide her with a studio, and in fact, the two were married in 1924. They divided their time between New York City and Lake George, where the Stieglitz family had an estate. And it was there that this photograph was taken. Alfred Stieglitz, who was renowned as a photographer, art dealer, and all-round champion of modernism in America, actually more or less stopped taking photographs before O'Keeffe entered his life. These, however, have inspired him to pick up the camera again. Altogether, over the years they spent together, Stieglitz would take more than 300 photographs of O'Keeffe. Indeed, she's probably one of the most photographed women of the 20th century. This photograph of O'Keeffe, though, would be among Stieglitz's first. What we're seeing here is O'Keeffe posed by the lake on the dock of the lake. It was here at the lake that O'Keeffe began painting the flowers that would become so very famous when Stieglitz started exhibiting them in the 1920s. As a result of Stieglitz's practice of displaying O'Keeffe paintings alongside his photographs of her, many critics came to conflate the two. They began to imagine O'Keeffe in terms of Stieglitz's image, her persona shaped by his vision. This large newspaper is a large charcoal drawing that O'Keeffe made in 1932. This was in fact O'Keeffe used in her art atop the shelf himself, a newly built skyscraper 31 stories tall. O'Keeffe and her husband Alfred Stieglitz were both fascinated by this new perspective. O'Keeffe made drawings like this one and created paintings of this view. Stieglitz took photographs from high perch. What both were celebrating was the novelty of this aerial perspective. The point made possible by the advent of the skyscraper. This so transformed the skyline of cities like New York and Chicago in the first part of the 20th century. Unlike the grand buildings, cathedrals, and palaces of the capital of the world, the skyscraper is a very American contribution to the modern era.
I want to pause here because I often make a point when I'm teaching in this class, and this is nothing new. It won't be new to you. That art is a reflection of the society that creates it. And one of the disservices you will do, or you will definitely do if you take the route that many seem to want to take, which is the easy route, is by just looking at the work of art of another artist and just strive to imitate or take bits and pieces of it and just reform it into your own thing. What you're doing, you're eliminating all of your experiences and exposures to what is happening in our world today. Remember, you are the artists who are the storytellers for the next generation. And you want to do justice to what is happening here and now by expressing your take on the things that are occurring around you, rather than just going and plagiarize what others would have done in their time. When you do that, you strip yourself of your soul and your artistic soul and your artistic humanity, and you're just painting by regurgitating, or you're just drawing by regurgitating. But when you understand context and you understand the influence of your environment and your culture on your expression, then you give the level of respect that is due to your thoughts and your opinions, and you express them fearlessly. Would you have fears from time to time with some of the things that you're thinking about and you want to express? Yes, but that is why information like this from history is there to help you to recognize that you are not the only one who have gone through some of these things. You will not be the only one, and there are going to be artists who will come after you, and art students who will come after you are going to face the same challenges. And by exposing you to these kind of videos, I'm hoping that these are some of the things that you're taking away. Now, if you might have missed it, that's why I stopped the video to talk about it now. Don't ever, don't ever strip yourselves of your artistic soul and your artistic humanity by just copying what others would have done and ignoring what you feel, what you see, what you think, and what you believe in, because all of those things should be the core of everything that you produce and put on canvas or paper, or you put in three-dimensional form. Whether it's fashion, whether it's functional, always remember, put yourself into what you do, and don't depend on just imitating without understanding context under which those works would have been produced. And I hope that's a point that you're going to remember, and you're going to remember well.
Painted 1945 belongs to Oakwood's Pelvis Case. She calls this one Pelvis Red and Yellow. It's one of two paintings of the subject in the museum's collection, and the other, the bone is white, the sky is blue. In both cases, we are invited to peer through an aperture, the opening in the pelvis bone of an animal. In fact, we have a pretty good idea of how Keith came to make these paintings. She held the pelvis bone of a small animal, something feet down over the sky, up to the sky, and painted what she saw. The scale of the painting, however, transforms the small bone into something monumental. In this painting, the view through the opening is a bright yellow, contrasting oranges and reds. Now it's worth noting the date of this work, 1945. This is the time when some of the first tests were being carried out in nearby New Mexico with a devastating new kind of weapon, nuclear bombs. O'Keeffe may have been inspired by this knowledge to paint the sky and world lit up as if during one of these nuclear tests.
This is also another piece that you should really go back and listen to the factors. And of course, in some cases, it's an assumption being formed by the presenter. But nonetheless, because we knew the amount of time she was spent in New Mexico and our affinity and love for bones and skulls and things that she found in the desert, it allows you to see into her soul that she was very, very true to who and what she was. In your case now, if you don't do this, you're depriving the world of pieces like this. You're going to deprive the world of things that is needed for us to understand and appreciate humanity better. And that is why it's important for you to ensure that you develop that intellectual capacity as an artist. So that when you're painting and drawing and sculpting and doing whatever you're doing in the fine arts, you're doing it from a position of authority. You're doing it from a position of depth, not shallowness. You're coming from a deep place so that you can talk about things that persons are too afraid to talk about, or persons might not be aware of, that they need to be aware of, so that they can live a better life and that life can be better for all of us.
This view of New Mexico, Mesa and Rhodey, painted by George O'Keeffe in 1952. O'Keeffe had been living in this part of the country for more than 20 years when she painted this picture, but she'd only begun to live full-time in northern New Mexico after 1949. When she moved into the second of the two homes in the area, this one in the view of Abitu. In fact, this is the view from the Abitu home, looking out of George O'Keeffe's bedroom window. What we see in the foreground is a winding road that vanishes on the left-hand side of the canvas, and behind it, a tall mesa, or elevated flatland, from the Spanish word mesa, meaning table. O'Keeffe first discovered the landscape of the desert when she came to New Mexico in 1929. She spent that summer in Taos and began painting a whole range of new subjects: the architecture of the region, landscape, and still life subjects, like a boat became a recurring motif. painted the same view on several occasions. In some, her focus is almost exclusively on the road, treated as a telegraphic line that can become subject of its own right. In this way, O'Keeffe could begin with observed nature, the cottonwood trees in the foreground, the road beyond, Mesa reaching up to the sky, and reduce it to a few essential elements, creating an abstraction of her own invention. These small paintings of shells are among my favorite works in the collection. I want to focus on the painting on the left, shell number 2, 1928. In the 1920s, Georgia O'Keeffe and Alfred Staples were splitting their time between New York City in the winter and spring, and Lake George in the summer and fall. Though O'Keeffe had a studio at Lake George, there were times when the comings and goings of visitors and the busy life of the lake made it difficult to paint. In these times, O'Keeffe would escape New York and make her way to coastal Maine. It was there in 1928 that he painted this tidal pool still life. A work on a very small scale, not much larger than a page book. It is nevertheless one of the more concentrated and clever of O'Keeffe's compositions. Even as the critics in New York would draw comparisons between O'Keeffe's paintings of flowers and the female form, we were reminded here of how sensuality could be communicated in a much subtler way. How the seaweed in the upper left-hand corner caresses the smooth collection.
And that's a point worth going back and listening to in your own personal time. It's also a point worth listening to and then comparing and looking at what is going on with the lines in a composition. Because it's an element that we don't always work with in a very conscious way. But it's clear that from this particular piece of work that if you understand the power of lines, that you can do a lot of things with it, because you can see what is going on here with the contrast here. And then you have that rhythm that is established there through repetition, and then you have this intricate stuff going on in the back here, and then you have the overlapping over here. So these are all little things that you can do to really add interest to your composition, and it's not bland. And this is not going to be done by accident. You have to be aware of these things in order to use them and use them effectively. And you're only going to get to this place by studying and seeing examples of what persons would have done with it before. And then when you have your ideas and your inspiration, then you start subject your stuff to fit within the context. And these are the kind of thought patterns that should guide your making and production of your major tasks. Nobody should be telling you and dictating to you how your major tasks should look. What they can do is offer you critical assessment of the technical issues that you're dealing with, maybe your composition, little things like that. But when it comes to the idea and the core message of your major task, if you put the required work in terms of reading and research, you will know exactly what is it you want to say and how you want to say it. Because one of the things that you're going to learn as artists and art students is that everybody got an opinion. And in some cases, some persons like to force their opinion and ideas upon you. And some persons like to make it seem as though they are the authority on this subject. And therefore, you should listen and do what they say you should do. I don't believe in that kind of a thing, because for me, I more believe in asking questions to see if you know exactly what you're doing. And in asking those questions, you should also be questioning yourself whether you're answering those questions correctly and whether those questions are leading you in a direction that you might have missed. But to produce a solid piece of major task is not a difficult process. But it becomes difficult if you do no research and reading for yourself. Then you are at sea. And there are too many examples of artistic expression on the internet and in history of persons who would have done it before for you to be struggling with something like a major task topic and mode of expression. Too many. If you're struggling because you're not doing the necessary work that is required of you from an individual point of view, and that is something that you need to change and change now if you're one of those students.
This painting, which O'Keeffe called Above the Clouds, belongs to a series painted in 1962. You may notice that the gallery itself has been transformed, and the clouds seem to have taken over the wall. The Above the Clouds motif culminated in a very large mural style painting. Now at the Art Institute of Chicago. What we're seeing here is smaller and earlier. What all these paintings have in common is the fascination with the immensity of the sky, reaching all the way to the horizon. And the forms of the clouds in this painting look a little like stepping stones that lead into that far distance. O'Keeffe had always sought new ways to see, and the experience of airplane travel provided just that. Much as the view from the top of the skyscraper had done for the artist when she was living in New York City.
Whenever I see your back, if you're hearing us, if there, I would appreciate if you can add uh, before we wrap up. If you can add what you would have gathered from the research. How long are you going to take to get home?
I'm currently in a bus going home. Well, what I've learned from the research is that the way she looked at things, what I've observed is the way she looked at things in the environment. She placed a lot of emphasis on them. And the things that you usually overlook in the environment, she placed so much emphasis on it that it captures your attention. So when you go back in the environment and you see it, it's like it makes you refer to the work that you saw. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, yes. Go ahead. We're hearing you.
So, for instance, the little, like the way she placed emphasis on the flower, most of us would have like go ahead and paint the flower just the way we see it. But she emphasized on every fold and even add to the colors and the lines she uses, emphasize the way, every fold on the flower. So that's something that I observe also in her work. She adds to it. She doesn't just paint the plain things that you see. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, so in my work, I would the inspiration that I've drawn from the videos that, oh dear, in my work, I would usually use a lot of things around me, and they would also describe, they would also be a part of me. It will not be only, I won't want to paint only things in the environment, but it's a part of myself I'm putting out on the canvas. So that's something that I see coming out in her work also.
One of the things I'm hoping that you would have taken away from, especially from the nude photographs that I would have sent, because I
Uh-huh.
know you're dealing with a female figure. I'm hoping that you will
Yeah.
recognize that with the direction that you're going in, and I don't think you should allow anyone to dissuade you from going in that direction. You're going to have to prepare to do a little bit of standing up for yourself. You're going to have to prepare to take some stinging criticism in some cases, and a lot of judgmental words and opinions that are going to be very, very far off from what is really happening in terms of what you want to present. You're going to have to deal with that like she did, and you're going to have to deal with it with grace and poise, because we live in a society where in contemporary times every little thing offends everybody. Everybody finds something. Everybody's an expert, a keyboard specialist at the back who can voice an opinion and something. And it's an environment that you're going to have to deal with, and you're going to have to ensure that you do enough reading and research, and you're comfortable with yourself and who you are and the pieces that you're going to put out there from an artistic point of view, because you're going to have to deal with that challenge. It's not going to be different for you, and I'm speaking to you directly because of the direction that I'm seeing you going in artistically. And I urge you to continue to go in that direction. Ensure that you're strong enough so that you don't get sidetracked by some of these so-called critics and specialists and these naysayers, because they can easily kill your dreams and your vision that you really have for yourself and the direction in which your work is going. I want to make sure that I make that clear to you, especially because it is something that you need to be aware of as you continue to strive to develop. Because I know, based on what I'm seeing in your work, that you have a lot to say, and a lot of what you have to say is very, very important to society in this moment. And don't allow yourself to be sidetracked by these so-called critics and experts and specialists on things that most of them don't know nothing about.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your contribution. Get home safely. And you can always catch the bits and pieces that you would have missed, because it's going to be posted on the stream as always. Okay. Yeah,
Yes,
Roberto.
sir.
Any stuff you want to wrap up with finally before we close off?
I don't really have anything else to add, but I think we this was a good discussion that we had. I definitely benefited from it. It's nice to be able to exchange ideas and see what everyone else is thinking. Especially how we don't really get this experience a lot these days, but it's nice to be able to have it.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I'm disappointed at times that persons don't make more effort. And I really appreciate what Minerva did today, because even though she's on the road, she made the effort to at least check in on us. But it is one of the days that we would have said. We said we were going to meet once a week for the live session, for just because of this reason, is that when we're all in here at one time, the sharing of ideas stimulates so much more, and we all benefit in a way, because these discussions, you want to be able to get them in a synchronous classroom setting. You have to have the synchronous setting where all of us meet together and we can bounce ideas off of each other. And because of it is one of the limitations of the online platform, that unlike the physical classroom, where in most cases, even though some persons will be absent anyway, in most cases you're present and you're there, and the face-to-face contact allows us to be able to draw directly. We can do the same thing with these live streams, you know, on Mondays. And Mondays is a day that we set aside. So make the extra effort, because we can all see that it's so much more beneficial. And the idea is each one teach one, and we're not all going to come to the table with the same thing. And that's why it's important for us to ensure that we are present at these sessions, so that it can be a benefit to all of us. Because as we progress, there's a major project that we're gonna come with, and it's gonna be inspired by a poem by Maya Angelou, "Still I Rise." I'm gonna be posting that either before the day out, or definitely before Wednesday. But that is another direction that I want us to go in, where we're gonna study that poem, and you're going to produce work based on your interpretation of that particular poem. What I'm going to also do, I'm going to also put one example of a person breaking the poem down in terms of our interpretation of what it's all about, because there's very important points in that particular piece of analysis of the poem that I feel, not that I feel, that I know would be very, very good to you as art students, and allow you to really think outside the box and think on a more intellectual level. But I want you to start thinking along those lines. And I think our upcoming end of semester virtual exhibition is going to be titled around that same poem. So that's why I'm going to make that a major part of our study. You're going to decide whether you produce a series of work or one piece of work for that particular assignment. And the title that I'm looking at for that particular virtual exhibition is "Still We Rise." Because essentially we are working in difficult times. There are lots of things that are going on, and lots of challenges that we have to face. I know that you are facing challenges as students. There are challenges that I'm facing as an instructor here too. And some of the things that I'm doing, I'm not doing it without resistance and opposition. But I see the value in what I'm doing with you as a group, and I see the benefits that it brings to you as individuals. Because one of the things I often like to see, and it's one of the reasons why I record most of my classes and I save information, is that when I make a point, I would have information and evidence to back it up. So if I say to you, or if I say to anyone, the students in my painting class or the students in my drawing class are improving, I must have the evidence to show. And no one can look at what we've been doing with these virtual exhibitions from when we started to now and say that they're all the same. It's not possible. Because every time one is juice, my objective is to get more out of you, for you to produce better work, for you to do a better job, and then by extension, when I put it all together, to ensure that when I put it together, it is impressive and it is different from the other one, and different in the sense that it is better. And that is one of the things I want you to continue to do as individual students. Strive to be the best version of yourself and to bring the best out of yourself at all times. And I'm showing you that it can be done, because the information is out there. The information is out there. I think the only thing that's lacking in this class is that there isn't enough time for me to do actual demonstration, live demonstration, for you to be able to follow along. But the reason why I'm not doing that is because I don't have the equipment to do a good job. And I'm not going to produce substandard stuff just for the sake of doing demonstration. But I think not I think, I know that if you pay attention to the videos, because I go and study these videos before I post them online, if you pay attention to the videos that I'm submitting, you're going to get some very, very good points from there. One of the criticism that often comes with having students exposed to stuff like this is that you can easily be sucked into speaking like a tutor or painting like a tutor or drawing like a tutor. And that is something I don't ever encourage my students. I don't want anybody to paint like me or think like me or speak like me. The fact that I'm sharing what I share with you means that you're supposed to be better because you have your own personal experiences, you have your own goals and objectives that you want to achieve. What you can do is take bits and pieces from me and you put it together to form a new whole. And always remember that. And that's one of the reasons why these kind of discussions will work well, because when Minerva makes her contribution and you make your contribution and Ms. Buffel make her contribution and Zoya make her contribution, we can always pick from bits and pieces from those different individuals and put something together. And sometimes persons come up with ideas that we didn't even think about. And believe you me, there are times when you all will say things that I didn't really think about. And then I realize, yeah, I need to go back, double check this and learn from it. And that's why I said in this situation, it's an each one teach one situation. And I want to thank you all for the time that you would have taken to be on the session this afternoon. Ms. Minerva, I want to thank you for making that special effort because you would have missed the session on Wednesday. But I really appreciate the fact that you would have taken time to at least tune in and give us some time. We really appreciate that. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm looking forward to see the composition. And remember, we do this again next week, Monday. Have a good one, folks.
Thank you, Zerabay.
Okay, sir.